got it.
Coming up next on CBS Sports, the NCAA Basketball Championship.
They just got to throw it under the basket, Up, Morris time. Holy mackerel! Holy mackerel! Holy mackerel! Remember, it's the horn.
James Forrest, yesterday's hero on the road to the Final Four. Hi, everybody. Jim Nance, along with Billy Packer and Mike Francesa. We welcome you to our CBS Sports continuing coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship Tournament. By day's end, we'll have cut the field down to the Sweet 16. We have a triple header today. How you feeling, guys?
I'm feeling fine, Jimmy. I'm doing a lot better than George Raveling and USC. Billy, what a heartbreaking loss.
It's a tough one when you have that victory right in your hand and it gets away from you. And let's set up that particular play, Jim. I think it was amazing. So many times, coaches are the ones that make the key decision. In this case, it was all players. Matt Geiger's running the end line. Now, remember, Georgia Tech has no timeouts. They're down 2. What they're probably going to try to do here is to run Travis Best long, because they only have one chance in this game with this few amount of seconds left, and that is to go long with a pass. John Berry is going to be a secondary outlet. He's going to circle in through here. What Geiger does, he realizes he has nothing long. He throws the perfect bounce pass up the sidelines, of which Berry's going to get. He's going to drive up the sideline, and then the man, Rodney Chapman, who set the super situation up for Southern Cal to win the game. Watch what an unfortunate situation happens here for Southern Cal. Berry takes it up the sidelines. No timeouts left. It hits Chapman's foot, goes out of bounds, set up a perfect situation for Georgia Tech to go on and win this thing, Jim.
In essence, like a timeout. So Geiger then inbounded, trailing by 2. And he went to his second choice. He wanted to go to John Berry first, but James Forrest, his first 3 of his career at Georgia Tech, the second time he won a game at the buzzer. That has to qualify as our only buzzer beater so far in the tournament.
Only thing I can say is holy mackerel.
Holy mackerel. I think Al said that a few times. You know, Terry Daher might argue he had a shot to win with 1.8 seconds ago, but there was a timeout after that one. Okay, today we have action again at each of the Friday sites. We'll start everyone off in just a few moments down in Atlanta. Tulane, who knocked off St. John's on Friday, challenges Oklahoma State, the 2nd seed in the Southeast. The Green Wave is led by sophomore guard Kim Lewis, who paces the posse with a 16-point per game average. For the Cowboys, senior forward Byron Houston lassos in the big points and rebounds. Today's other early start takes place in Dayton, Ohio, where Michigan State squares off against Cincinnati in a battle of 4 and 5 seeds. Junior center Mike Peplowski peps up the Spartan offense, which will try to keep up with the Joneses. Bearcat forward Herb Jones, that is. He's averaging 18 points a contest. In our second games, tipping at around 2:20, some will see East Tennessee State against Michigan. Others will watch UTEP against the 1 seed Kansas, Iowa State and Kentucky, Southwestern Louisiana and New Mexico State in a battle of Cinderellas. And then finally, around 4:45, many will see Louisville against UCLA or Syracuse against UMass in the East. And the road to the Final Four will continue on CBS after this word from your local station. When the road to the Final Four continues here on CBS.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the second round of the NCAA Basketball Championship is sponsored by Chevrolet, the cars and trucks more people depend on. AT&T, proud sponsor of the 1992 U.S. Olympic team. And by Budweiser, the king of beers, who reminds you friends know when to say when.
Part of that road to the Final Four travels through Atlanta, Georgia, which is where we are today. The Omni in Atlanta for Southeast Regional action. today. Tulane will play Oklahoma State, Michigan against East Tennessee State. The winners advance to Lexington. And right now, it's the Green Wave of Tulane and the Cowboys of Oklahoma State. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omni in Atlanta. I'm Greg Gumbel, and today, Tulane and Oklahoma State coaches Eddie Sutton and Perry Clark. How do they view this game? Well, Perry Clark sees a big problem in the middle.
Byron Houston body justice. I've never seen a physical specimen like that. Obviously, we're going to have to work hard to try to control him. We can't let him have a career night. But at the same token, Oklahoma State has excellent guard play.
The biggest keys, as far as I'm concerned, in the game today will be, can we board with them? They're relentless on the offensive boards, and we just can't give up a lot of second opportunities. And then the other key will be, can we minimize the number of turnovers against their different defenses?
Alongside me this afternoon, as always, Quinn Buckner. And part of the problem Eddie Sutton has is the scrappy play of Tulane. It's a scrappy team.
Well, it's a very scrappy team. The thing that they really like to do is come at you and in the wave. They call themselves the Green Waves, but offensively they like to get some points. But they really work to get their points as much as they can on the defensive end of the court. What you have to watch is that they'll trap with the two guys in the center. They will even trap you in the center. Somewhat unusual, with the exception of if you can get caught by that half-court line, you can now use that as a defender. And if you do that, you must protect the basketball, because if you don't, they got great anticipation, very, very good hands. You see right here is how they get the ball pop loose there. And then you see David Whitmore finish it off. They got to get some easy baskets. Guard play is going to be a premium today.
Tulane, a first-game winner over St. John's. They go up against Oklahoma State, and a big problem in one of the most talented players in the country.
Yeah, Craig, it's a big problem, but he's a very, very good player. Byron Houston is just extremely strong. And this position is Sean Sutton, who's going to play a big part. You look right here. Anytime Byron Houston gets the ball, if he doesn't have somebody going up with him, he'll make that shot. And he may make the shot with somebody in his face.
Oklahoma State knocked off Georgia Southern on Friday night. The starting lineups, Anthony Reed and David Whitmore up front for Tulane, with Matt Pop in the middle, Greg Gary and Kim Lewis in the backcourt. Byron Houston and Corey Williams with Bryant Reeves, the 7-foot freshman, in the middle. Darwin Alexander and Sean Sutton in the backcourt. Our officials for today's game: Lenny Wirtz from Mount Healthy, Ohio, Frank Bassoni of Bellevue, Michigan, and Daryl Ogden from Rupert, Idaho, and we are underway.
Well, you saw a turnover right there, a little bit of an unforced error. Sean Sutton trying to throw the ball up quickly, but Oklahoma State can run the ball up, but I do say that the guard play is going to be of a premium because of the turnovers. They've got to be able to handle the basketball. They've come out here as Oklahoma State in the man-to-man.
This is Anthony Reed, who hit a big basket late in the game Friday night to aid the Tulane victory over St. John's. This is David Whitmore. Matt Pop traveled.
Yeah, Matt Pop was a little indecisive. He actually had the jump shot, but the thing Tulane is going to see more so than they've seen in probably some time is the patience defensively of Oklahoma State. Eddie Sutton, known for his defensive coaching ability, will have his team very patient on the defensive end.
Oklahoma State's look is actually a three-guard offense. Corey Williams technically listed as a forward, but he goes 6'2". Corey Williams, Sean Sutton, and Darwin Alexander. Williams is the tallest. And a traveling violation goes against Oklahoma State.
This is a little bit of pregame jitters because Eddie Sutton is trying to get the high-low action going for his team, but a little pregame jitters right there. But the guy you talked about, Corey Williams, though he played a forward, he's the quickest guy on the team.
Tulane can put points on the board. On Friday night when they beat St. John 61-57, it was their lowest point total of the year. They averaged 83 a game during the season. There's Pop.
If he can make that shot, it's going to change the entire complexion of the game, because what you do is bring Bryant Reeves out from just standing defensively in the paint.
Byron Houston for three.
You worry about him being a low down low. Now you've got to go guard him on the perimeter.
Cowboys up 3-0. Whitmore. And Houston crashes the boards. Houston inside to the 7-foot freshman. This turnaround is no good, and up high for the rebound is Anthony Reed.
And Reed is another person I think needs to have a good game because he's going to be guarded by Byron Houston, and you've got to make Byron play defense.
Greg Gary comes back and just misses the three, tapped out of bounds, and it belongs to the Cowboys. There's Perry Clark in his third year at Tulane. What a job he has done at the Green Wave for the second straight year. Coach of the year in the Metro Conference.
Talked to him before the game. He said, just like the other day on Friday, this group is loose. They're just coming out to play and do the best they can. And you need to have your guys loose here. You know, this is a new experience for everybody, with the exception of Whitmore, who was involved with the Georgia Tech team, but everybody else has never been involved in NCAA.
First foul on Whitmore. Speaking of Georgia Tech, are they happy here in Atlanta about that result last night against Southern Cal?
Boy, you could just hear the whole city light up when Forrest made that shot.
And Perry Clark had to have some feelings as well, having been an assistant at Georgia Tech for 6 years under Bobby Cremins.
You can see coming out of that out of bounds, Tulane went into the zone.
Corey Williams off the glass, doesn't go, out of bounds, and belongs to Oklahoma State. 17:38 to play here in the first half. The winners today move on to Lexington, Kentucky, and the inbounds play works to perfection for Corey Williams.
Byron Houston got so much attention that Anthony Reed, who was down on the block on that side, just totally forgot about Corey Williams. And that's how he got open for that shot.
Tulane still looking for its first points of the day.
So he's got to play.
Reed. And there they are.
Yeah, he's got to play. You've got to put some pressure on Byron Houston. Otherwise, he can relax on the defensive end and play on the offensive end. And you don't let any good offensive player get a break if you can avoid it.
Oklahoma State, the number 2 seed in the Southeast Regional, coming in today at 27-7. And getting back on defense is Kim Lewis.
They came out in the 2-2-1 press and got the steal. Just nice rotation down by Kim Lewis.
Tulane forces an average of 22 turnovers a game. They will put relentless defensive pressure on a team.
I tell you, part of the reason they can do that, Greg, is we'll see shortly, is they get the posse. And what happens there is you very seldom see 10 people come at you the way the Green Wave can, and that's a foul on Byron Houston. Offensive rebounding a concern for Eddie Sutton. You can see the kind of problems they can create as Houston picks up the foul.
Houston's first. The posse, as Quinn refers to, the second 5 for Tulane. Coach Perry Clark will send them in at about the 5 or 6 minute mark here in the first half. And they will kick it up another notch.
Oh, at least another notch. Pop.
And the foul goes against Tulane.
They call that against
Anthony Reed.
Anthony Reed, and actually what happened to him is he got pushed in back by Byron Houston and just got himself knocked off balance.
You mentioned Matt Pop being a key, Quinn. He's had 3 opportunities to shoot that short jumper. He passed up the first one and has now missed the next 2.
Well, what will happen is that you'll continue to think that he'll miss that, as you see the nice play there by Brian Reed, the 7-foot center to Byron Houston, is that they'll come in with McKeeba Perry or Carlin Harton, somebody else that can make that shot.
Whitmore open, around and out, and Reeves with the rebound. Alexander looking for the pass down low, and it's out of bounds to Tulane. We'll take time, 15:48 to play, first half.
Basketball championship on CBS.
Ohio State and North Carolina on their way to Lexington as a result of yesterday's action in Cincinnati, and today's winners will join them. 4 ACC teams making up 1/4 of the Sweet 16.
Oh, my goodness, is he feeling it? That's off the wrong foot going to the basket.
G.J. Hunter has 9 points, and Tulane is within 2.
Byron Houston was the only guy that could have potentially cut that off. He's got 2 fouls, couldn't afford to pick up the 3rd. Fisher's telling that's an automatic reset. That's a kick ball by the defense, an automatic reset on the 45-second clock. Sutton,
Corey Williams, Cornell Hatcher, Byron Houston, and Bryant Reeves on the court. for Oklahoma State, which has seen its lead dwindle to 2.
This lineup, you see Cornell Hatcher standing way too. He's standing over by Perry Clark. He's got to get himself in position to be a threat. Standing out there by Perry Clark, you don't get anything done.
Foul is called on Greg Gary. That's number 1.
Well, that's also 10 fouls, though, so that puts them, they're shooting 2 foul shots now. And you got almost 6 minutes to go. You don't want to get yourself in that kind of position. See, the bench has been active.
Here's Bryant Reeves, 7-foot freshman from Gans, Oklahoma. Back on October the 15th, Oklahoma State thought about redshirting this young man and decided not to, Eddie Sutton said, because he was coming along so well. And Coach Sutton says, if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be where we are right now.
Well, he played a very good game on Friday. Handled the basketball, blocked some shots, ran the length of the court to block a shot, and was very good in the high-low situation, of which we haven't seen much here this afternoon, where Brian Reeves gets the ball at the high, if you will, and they call it the free throw line, and down low into Byron Houston. The reason he hadn't done that is because of the pressure of the Green Wave of Tulane.
Into the lane, Lewis doesn't fall. Here comes Oklahoma State. Williams.
Watch it.
Reeves got it.
See how he can get down the court. He just got himself down there in position. Tim Lewis did the only thing he could think of. Try to draw a charge.
Reeves had 12 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 blocked shots in the win over Georgia Southern on Friday night. Reeves over Reeves.
You know, that's the guy I think that's got to have a big game, because you've got to force Reeves to move around, and when you do, you wear him out, and then Eddie Sutton's got to get him out of the basketball game.
Hatcher had it taken away.
But he makes a very good play by stopping the basketball.
On the baseline. Hunter's shot came up short, and a traveling violation on Reeves.
Well, Brian Reeves has worked himself down, and then Hatcher is really patient, Cornell Hatcher, and he just makes a solid turn to the basket. I think that's a pretty good no call by the official, but a great effort on the part of Hatcher to get down.
Oklahoma State has hit its last 7 shots from the floor. They're shooting 77% from the field, and they lead by just 4 with 4:43 to play.
This is the matchup. I mean, Kim Lewis, in my opinion, is giving Byron Houston too much respect. I know Houston is a great player, but you make players, I don't care how great they are, you make them play. Houston is not really playing Lewis, and Lewis is a scorer.
Three-point shot is short.
And he shot that flat-footed. I mean, he really didn't get into it. That's the high-low play.
What a nice pass from Reeves to Byron Houston.
Yeah, he wasn't at the top of the key, but that's the high-low play. Because when he comes up there, you momentarily look at Reeves, and it leaves Houston with nobody to help on him.
Oklahoma State by 6, 4 minutes to play. Reeves got it.
I expect to see now that Brian Reeves is going to come out and try to guard Anthony Reed. And Reed is a guy with supreme confidence. They say they don't care how bad he's shooting, he's going to keep shooting the basketball. Then you'll see Reed go to the basket.
Sutton into the lane, got fouled, and it counts.
That's a veteran play there.
Let's go back a couple of moments and take a look at that high-low action you were talking about.
Well, what you do is you'll watch coming right at you. You'll see Reeves come right just below the foul line, and everybody focus their attention on Reeves. He makes a quick touch pass before the defense can react down to Byron Houston. And that's why he didn't get redshirted. I mean, you don't find many players that not only can recognize what's happening with Byron Houston, but he recognized it immediately and reacted to it in the correct manner, making a good touch pass.
Sean Sutton makes it 35-28. Oklahoma State with 3:37 to play in the first half. Games today in the West region: UCLA against Louisville, New Mexico State against Southwest Louisiana, and the winners there will advance to Albuquerque, where they will join Florida State
Yes, go ahead.
And a team called Indiana.
Go ahead and say it.
Is there a statue of you out in front of the Bloomington Airport or something like that?
I think not.
3:20 to play here in the first half. Whitmore to the baseline.
Tough with a touch, too. See, I really think he's going to be something more so in the second half than now. He seems to be playing just enough to keep Tulane in the game, if you will. It's not that he's not, going all out. It's just that he's just kind of setting back, seeing where the opportunities are. You get a guy in the corner, you got to keep him over there. This guy is just so tough to handle.
And Sean Sutton pulls it back out. Eddie Sutton said he wanted his team to minimize turnovers today.
Oh! That was sweet. That was really sweet.
Corey Williams now with 14 points and will go to the line for 15.
Well, look at that coming in the kitchen. Now he goes up, draws the contact, just kind of flips it up there with a nice little finger roll. Now they've made consecutively 2 3-point plays by the senior guards. Corey Williams gets his play just now. Sean Sutton made a 3-point play just a moment ago, so they've been able to get that guard to kind of carry him through. Eddie Sutton felt that he needed to get some good guard play to have a good shot at this game.
What I started to say, Quinn, was that he wanted to minimize the turnovers, and he said it was a major key because of the Tulane pressure. Oklahoma State's turned the ball over 10 times today, but they're shooting 80% from the floor.
They've been able to get the ball in position where they can be very effective. You get it, Byron Houston on the block. One thing you can do, the zone leaves you somewhat exposed because you end up guarding one man with two, and when you do that, obviously somebody's left open.
Reed coming up short on that one. And we are down to 2:15 to play here in the half. Houston for 3. And Anthony Reed, rather David Whitmore, high for the rebound. Whitmore fighting for his shot. And Perry has the loose ball. Hartman fouled by Reeves.
The offensive rebounds were the problem that Eddie Sutton was concerned about because he knew these guys were quick to the basket. Quick to the ball. Very, very quick to the ball.
Number 1 on Bryant Reeves.
Well, you see right here, Carlin Hartman gets the ball, and Reeves comes over, swings at it. Fisher felt there was too much body contact, but that's caused for offensive rebounds. So that's the problem now. Oklahoma State has gotten themselves an 8-point lead, but they've got to block out. Matter of fact, the offensive rebounds are Oklahoma State, who you would think would have quite a few because of Houston and that big body, have none. And Tulane has 4. That 3-point play by Sean Sutton, I thought, was a big play for Oklahoma State because they had gone through a bit of a scoring slump, and all of a sudden that broke it. And the question was, how does Tulane come back and get their little surge going? Because just prior to that, they had the surge. They got 2 free throws. Now they need to try to get a steal and get some momentum going out of the half.
Tulane back to within 6 with 1:45 to play in the first half.
And back to man-to-man.
Sutton fouled by pointer Williams. And Perry Clark just covered his face over on the bench. It's number 2 on Williams.
And what's good reason, Greg, because there was nowhere to go. So don't bail a guy out by but first of all, you're not in good position if you're reaching with your hand, and that's exactly what Pointer Williams did. He was reaching with his hand, and Perry Clark's thought is, don't bail him out. Let him have to make a play.
Perry Clark said, we may be the ugliest team you've ever seen on film, but when we play, I think you have to respect us.
And he's right, because what they'll force you to do is if you're playing at their tempo, then you've got to respect the fact that they can make you do that.
Byron Houston replaced in the lineup by number 30, Milton Brown.
It's a good substitution. Byron Houston has 2 fouls. You've got 1:39 to go. You don't want to risk him getting his third going out of the half.
Houston sits down with 11 points. And Sutton makes it a 39-32 lead for Oklahoma State as we approach 1.5 minutes. Perry looking for a way around Reeves and found it.
Corey Williams got down and helped out. Reeves just smartly just put his hands straight up to try to hold position. Here's where Tulane can make a run because you don't have your #1 scorer, and you got some senior leadership. Sean Sutton has got to find the people in position to score.
Reeves way out front. Sutton looks inside where Reeves is being fronted by Makiba Perry, and there's the takeaway. And that's a pretty quick travel call.
He just went down. Did he roll with the basketball?
Here's another look at it.
Well, there's a nice little knock right here. You see Pointer Williams knock the ball loose. He hadn't, I don't know if he had possession of the basketball as he started to roll over. If he doesn't, then you can't, it's hard for you to call it traveling.
Byron Houston back into the lineup with 46 seconds to play.
Well, Eddie Sutton got Byron Houston back in the game because he wants him on the offensive end, because what he realized, if that play is made, they're going down on the other end for an easy basket, and now you're looking at a 3-point lead.
Oklahoma State 11 turnovers here in the first half. And there is only about a half-second more time on the game clock than on the shot clock.
Now they'll try to go for a wide open shot or hold it.
Williams driving the baseline and draws the foul.
He's had a big first half, just exploding to the basket.
Foul is on Makiba Perry, and that's number 3 on Perry. And here comes Milton Brown back in. Eddie Sutton wanting to save Byron Houston that third personal before halftime.
The thing you like about the tournament is that everybody gets a fair chance at it. Let guys go up and play, let them make the decision, and you'll see there's contact, and he was trying to figure out which side of the rim to go to. But, you know, in addition to Corey Williams' speed, Corey Williams can rise, can jump. You know that terminology.
I'm the one in the Sinbad commercial with the 2-inch vertical.
The 2-inch vertical. Yeah, so I guess you know very little about the rise.
Let's not get carried away here. 39-34 with just over a half minute to play. And Williams gets 1 out of 2 to make it 40.
The way the game has been played, this is the kind of tempo that Oklahoma State would rather play at. I mean, they scored about 75, 76 points a game, but this game has not been up and down, even though Oklahoma State can do that. And part of that is due to the fact Oklahoma State has gotten back defensively, and their half-court defense has been solid.
Corey Williams has 16 first-half points, and we have 10 seconds to play in the half. Hunter. And that's a travel.
I'm pretty sure that's a travel.
And with 1.9 seconds to go, Tulane will get one more shot at it.
Whitmore's a guy that generally likes to take this shot, but G.J. Hunter had bidden one, but I look for Whitmore to try to come around and get this one.
Hunter. Almost there. That is the end of the first half with the score, Oklahoma State 40 and Tulane 34. And CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship will continue after this message and a word from your local station.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the second round of the NCAA Basketball Championship is sponsored by Dean Witter. Dean Witter measures success one investor at a time. United, come fly the airline that's uniting the world. Come fly the friendly skies. And by McDonald's, where what you want is what you get.
Oklahoma State has led from the start, has large a lead of 10 down to 6 at halftime as we come back into our studios in New York. Jim Nance, Billy Packer, and Mike Francesa, your thoughts, guys, on the first half.
Well, Jim, when you shoot 13 from 17 the floor, we talked about this yesterday in regard to coaches going in looking at the stats.
Georgia Tech game. Yeah.
Right, you shoot 13 for 17, say, how in the world are we not up by more than 6 points?
The only thing I'd say, they turn the ball over a lot, Jimmy. If they don't turn it over, they scored in the first half. Oklahoma State did. They turned it over 12 times. Have to be a little concerned with how easy Tulane scored.
Let's get a look right now, guys, with 2:30 to go before halftime. Cincinnati's lead is down to 8. It had been 17. Here's Tim Ryan with Digger Phelps.
I'd like to welcome those of you joining us here. An 8-point Cincinnati lead, 2:16 to go first half. Digger Phelps just telling us moments ago that this zone defense employed now by Michigan State the last 5 or 6 minutes has changed the tempo of the game, and Cincinnati has failed to react positively. They've seen a lead of 18 diminish now to 8.
Well, the game started out with Cincinnati really doing the half-court pressure, bothering Michigan State. Peplowski gets in quick foul trouble, forcing State now to go to different personnel. Cincinnati did an outstanding job controlling the offensive rebounds, but now the last 4 or 5 minutes with the zone, Cincinnati's been struggling offensively, and Michigan State has brought back their offensive confidence.
Van Exel's second foul sends John Zuloff to the line with a 1-and-1.
If you take a look at the offensive rebounds, Cincinnati has really punished Michigan State earlier in this half. It seems now with the zone, State's doing a better job of getting the defensive rebounds and running out of this zone, forcing Cincinnati to get back quicker, and this is why Zuloff's on the foul line. Points off turnovers, though. Cincinnati has 11, Michigan State only 4.
John Zuloff, the junior from Port Huron, Michigan, not too far from Detroit. 38-31, it's down to 7, a chance to reduce it to 6.
The zone has also taken Blunt out of the game offensively because he was doing a great job against Peplowski, and Van Exel was doing an excellent job of running the man offense. They seem to struggle.
Play a little history for you, Billy. Cincinnati in the tournament for the first time since 1977. That year, the Bearcats lost in the first round. The first victim of
Holy mackerel! Holy mackerel! Holy mackerel!
That guy.
Al McGuire.
March to a championship. That was the last time Cincinnati was in the tournament. And what about this game, guys? Is they near the half?
I think
35?
Michigan State did change the tempo of the game when they went to the zone. It was all Cincinnati's tempo early, Billy. But now I think there's no question that the game has really come back to the way Michigan State wants to play it.
Well, Jimmy's going back in history talking about Michigan State zone. We don't have to go back any further than that great championship team they had with Magic Johnson and our own Greg Kelser to talk about the great zone matchup that they played in those days. And they have packed that zone back inside the foul line now. So Cincinnati's going to have to start thinking perimeter shooting.
We'll keep you posted on this game. The game you're watching, Oklahoma State leads Tulane 40-34 at halftime. Tulane is not the only team that has played havoc with office pools across the country. In the next wave of action, scheduled to tip at about 2:35, you'll see East Tennessee State facing Michigan. Also, UTEP challenges Kansas, Iowa State against Kentucky, and Southwestern Louisiana has a date with New Mexico State. And in our triple header games, Louisville squares off with UCLA while Syracuse battles Massachusetts. The survival of Cinderellas is what March Magic is all about, and let's show you how they got to where they are today by winning their openers on Friday.
Strong rebound by Reed, but he missed in close and Stern, the guy Andy was just talking about, got the rebound, but let it get away. Reed and a foul to get the automatic bid, and now his team bidding to upset Joey Myers Blue Demon. All right, Pat, as Crawford buries a 3 outside.
Teams will come in not thinking about us and take us lightly, you know. I think that might have happened with DePaul, and they found out Cinderella can play a little basketball.
Nobody really gave us a chance this year, and we feel that we're a good team, but I don't think a lot of other people feel that we are.
After we won the Sun Belt Conference tournament, first day of practice, Coach Fletcher said we got to get ready for the tournament, and we're not going to be satisfied with just making it to the tournament. We're going to try to make some noise.
It is exciting. We had so many big upsets. We'd like to think that we belong in the tournament, so it was a nice return home.
Davis can do that. He can move around more than it makes you look at it. I mean, he's on the other side of the basket already.
And Rodney English will look at it and put it up.
They give him time to look at the basket. Womack has got to go out there. You can't let a guy.
32 years to get a head coaching job, and the last 2 years have been sort of like a dream.
I think that's really one of the biggest wins for East Tennessee State. You know, as far as all the 4 years I've been here, I think we had a lot of good wins, but I think this takes the cake for all of them.
Wardan had it taken away from him.
Oh, my goodness.
Anthony Reed with the ball.
And they have done it.
That's it.
This is one of the best wins in the history of Tulane. I wanted them to go out this afternoon and have fun and to win this one for themselves.
Okay, guys, what is the psyche of the Cinderella teams in round 2?
You know, I think you have 5 teams counting Tulane today that are 10 seeds or lower, and a lot of excitement, Billy, to winning that first round game. And the teams they go against in this second round today have a different agenda. They're looking to advance, so the psychology of getting prepared to play is tough.
They really do. Eric Moton said it very well for his club, and the fact that we want to make some noise. I think Dick Tarrant has the best perspective for one of these lower-end teams. Our job for the Final Four is to get to the Sweet 16. That be a realistic goal. So it's tough for those teams to have those big upsets, Jim, to come back that next day.
They've gone to the half at Dayton, Cincinnati 42, Michigan State 35. We'll get you back for the start of the second half. Oak State leading by 6 in Atlanta as we continue on the road to the Final Four.
We'll return to the Omni in Atlanta after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the NCAA Basketball Championship.
Is CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the second round of the NCAA Basketball Championship is sponsored by Pontiac and your local Pontiac dealer. We build excitement. The financial consultants at Shearson Lehman Brothers. You can get there from here. And by Subway, sandwiches and salads made fresh before your eyes.
Welcome back, everyone, for the second half. 40-34, Oklahoma State is leading Tulane. Greg Gumbel, Quinn Buckner. Let's check in now with Curry Kirkpatrick. Curry?
Greg, Perry Clark is concerned. He knows Oklahoma State's controlling the game. They're shooting 76%, but he blames his own team for that. They're giving up too many easy baskets. They're not intense enough. He said, look, if we're going to go down with our guts hanging out. Back to you guys.
Curry Clark getting pretty graphic on a Sunday afternoon, isn't he?
No, but he's just saying that his guys have got to put it on the line. He just didn't think that they gave enough effort. It's almost one of those things that you give Oklahoma State a little bit too much respect. You got to play. You get a great team and great players. Make them show that they're better than you are. And Perry Clark is saying his team did not do that.
And welcome to those of you just joining us here at the Omni in Atlanta. Greg Gumbel, Quinn Buckner, Curry Kirkpatrick. And the second half just underway. 42-34 is our score. Corey Williams with a terrific first half for Oklahoma State. 16 of their 40 points. And then Byron Houston has just hit 2 of his 13 to start the second half.
Well, that has been the story. The posse hasn't been able to exert any kind of pressure in their half-court trap on Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has the veteran guards. They've been able to get some good plays from Corey Williams, particularly in scoring. And I just don't believe that Tulane has come out as aggressive as they're playing right now.
This is Williams with the basketball. And a whistle blows underneath, and a foul is on Byron Houston.
Well, that's Byron's third foul, too. He tried to get position in there. You can just see his arms. He's so strong. You see, they shot Oklahoma State 77% to 43. And the bench for Tulane scored 19 points to Oklahoma State's 3. And they got the turnovers. They weren't able to convert the turnovers. And you can see Williams had 16 points, and T.J. Hunter was playing well, and he's another guy that's going to have to come back in off the posse and score. See, every shot that Tulane takes is a contested shot. They've not had many uncontested shots. That's the reason they're struggling with the percentage.
Williams, Sutton, Alexander, Houston, and Reeves on the floor for Oklahoma State. Same starting 5. And the situation is the same for Tulane as well. Sutton outside. Williams, another three-pointer.
He is rolling.
He has 19 points.
I don't think he's missed the three-pointer yet either. He's got 4 at least.
Reed
hand in the face. Again.
And the foul is on Greg Gary, number 3.
They've got to be more patient, this Tulane. Move the ball so you can get more shots inside. Try to draw some fouls. As long as you take and turnaround jump shots, nobody's going to foul you, particularly a smart defensive team like Oklahoma State. Grayden Wave have now gone to a zone that play a little bit of a matchup zone, trying to make sure that they know where the shooters are. And the one guy they've got to find, or they're in trouble. Because now they're getting it inside and outside. Because you got to find Corey Williams, and they leave Brian Reeves open for a little three-footer.
7 straight points to open the second half for the Cowboys.
Well, this is a place that you probably normally see a timeout, but I think Perry Clark is going to try to wait to see can he wait.
Shot doesn't go. Lewis over Reeves, and he'll go to the free throw line.
He's the guy that I talked to you about at half, not Brian Reeves, because he played well, but Kim Lewis. He averages 15 points a game. He had 1 point at halftime. A scorer goes in at halftime and says, I've got to find a way to get some numbers on the board. You see, just Whitmore takes a tough shot over Reeves. Reeves gets back, but not quick enough for Lewis, who keeps it live. And then you'll see all of a sudden he's able to go up over Reeves, get a good touch, and Brian Reeves gets his second foul.
Tulane trails by 11.
They can get the pass in the middle and get anything they want in Oklahoma State. That's just what they do. Anytime they can, they just send it right in the center of the court.
Sutton. And Sutton is fouled by Anthony Reed. That's number 3 on Anthony Reed.
Greg, that play was made by Bryant Reeves. You know, we talked about him in the other game, but I'm impressed with his ability to read situations. Because what happened that time is, as he got double teamed, he took the ball, and look where they've been passing. Where Corey Williams had been getting his shots in the first half with a skip pass over the top of the defense. That time, Brian Reeves had started his motion to skip pass, and then one of the players, David Whitmore, got in the way of what would have been a skip pass, and then he just dropped it to Sean Sutton inside.
Anthony Reed's 3rd personal foul has called Perry Clark to send in one member of the posse a little sooner than he would like. Number 30, Matt Green.
Clark goes through stages where he finds out who becomes the most productive, and then he'll just stay with them.
Lewis had it stripped from him, and it's out of bounds to Oklahoma State. Here in Atlanta, Tulane got here with a victory over St. John's. Oklahoma State eliminated Georgia Southern. In our next game, it'll be Michigan and East Tennessee State, and the winner of the games today move on to Lexington, Kentucky next weekend.
Well, in the Michigan East Tennessee State game, you'll see whether or not these young guys that they call freshmen are sophomores, since this is the end of the year, because their patience is going to be tested. Because if the three-point shot is going for East Tennessee State, they are just tough to guard.
Houston. Houston has 15. And it's 50-36. OSU.
Tempo is just where OSU wants it.
Whitmore down the lane.
The other way.
Offensive foul.
Yeah, that goes the other way.
And Perry Clark wants a timeout right now. 16-14 to play in the first half, and things are not going the way of the Green Wave.
Well, some great matchups still ahead today on our CBS coverage of the tournament, and we'll have UTEP against Kansas, the top seed in the Midwest. Eastern Tennessee, an upset winner, takes on Michigan next. Quite a lineup, so stay with us all day.
Ray Respert's having a great game for Michigan State. He's got 8 field goals and 14 tries, 4 of them three-pointers, 4 for 4 in the line, and he's been the offense for Michigan State today.
After a 3-point game on Friday in the opener against Southwest Missouri State. Bothered with a hand injury and a cut lip, but he's playing some good ball today. Blunt goes down and travels.
Well, he's been on the bench for a long time, and he doesn't have that rhythm that he had, but he'll get back into it. Blunt had 14 points in the first half. Peplowski's having trouble guarding him, so it's going to be interesting to see if Huggins makes Blunt become the offensive threat that he was in the first half.
State 5 of 14 shooting from the field here in the second half. And all Respert, their offense. Montgomery Inside, that won't go for Peplowski.
Tough move to go up and under for him. He could have gone up, jump stopped, and gone up strong on the ball side. He would have had a three-point play.
Yeah, and especially with his two bad ankles, he doesn't quite have the same movement and leverage. Van Exel for Blunt. Blunt left it short. Montgomery rebound.
He's still cold, but I'd still go with him.
Wyshynski for three. No. Rebound, Blunt.
One thing about shooting the three, if you got your big guys ready for defensive rebounds, go for it. Wyshynski took the shot, and there was 4 white shirts in the lane ready to rebound. Shot it too early.
Chip, Scott, Blunt, Van Exel, Jones, and Buford. The lineup for the Bearcats of Cincinnati. Wyshynski with Respert, Peplowski, Stevens, and Montgomery for Michigan State.
Buford wants Van Exel out.
Buford in traffic, comes back outside of Van Exel, going for three. He rushed his shot, rebounded by Scott.
It's that long rebound we keep talking about. In these hard floors with a hard basket makes it a hard rim, and the ball comes off longer. That rebound went right over to Scott. Push off. Good call.
Herb Jones pushing off Wyshynski. His third foul.
Now in this transition going down the floor, wait for a rebounder. Wyshynski takes a shot. Look at the 2 white shirts already. 3-4. No possession to get a chance for an offensive rebound.
And Jones gets another one. That's 4 on him.
2 quick fouls. Hook Wyshynski underneath, reaches in. You don't need to foul full court when you're pressing, especially when Michigan State is shooting the bonus. And this is probably the best offense the State can have now in the next 6 minutes is get to the foul line, get to the foul line.
They haven't missed from here.
Plus, you don't have to worry about getting trapped or throwing the ball away.
4 on Jones, 10 on the team. Respert at the line, an 87% shooter, and the Spartans are batting 1,000 from the free throw line in the game.
With Scott back in the game and Blunt in the front line, they've got a big team. Be interesting right now to see with this personnel if Michigan State goes to the zone.
First miss today by an 87% shooter, no less.
Because the 1-2-2 zone will take away the three-point shooting, but it'll also put Michigan State in a rebounding situation defensively because of Blunt and Scott inside.
Margin is 4, 5:48 to play.
State playing man-to-man.
Van Exel outside for Scott, nearly copped it up. Blunt and Scott in together. That hasn't occurred frequently. I think only once earlier in the game. Van Exel, yes.
He can go one-on-one. Good player.
Bob Huggins and the Bearcats must have visions of
now this is
losing
not
a
a
huge
quick
lead
team.
again.
Not a quick team for them to press right now. Cincinnati's just going to play solid defense. But Scott can't move in the press.
Montgomery inside of Peplowski. Turnaround no good. Blunt all alone for the rebound.
He faded away on that. He should have gone through Scott.
And he had no help underneath.
No rebounding.
Miller up and ready to come in for the Spartans. Blunt for Martin. He can jump and does. Had Montgomery on him. That was easy for him, and he picked up the foul as well.
Eric Martin is a solid post player. He plays low post. He can play like he's 6'8", even though he's 6'5". He's very strong, makes a good move getting the ball in the position. Wyshynski cannot guard him one-on-one in the post. Gets behind, one power dribble up and under because of his jumping ability. Draws the foul on Wyshynski. Three-point play for Cincinnati.
Miller in for Peplowski. Terrence Gibson comes in. Blunt goes out.
Peplowski's a little tired right now, a little frustrated with his offensive game. State's got to make a move. We're near that 5-minute mark of a game where now Cincinnati can control the offense. Michigan State's front court has not done a good job of scoring today.
A 10-6 average on the season, no points. 9-point Bearcat lead, pressing deep. 4:34 to go. Wyshynski on the trap.
Well, he picked up his dribble at half court. He should have looked down to the sideline a lot quicker, looked to the middle. He wouldn't have had that problem.
Smart play off the foot of the Bearcat player. They keep possession starting from half court.
Zuloff's coming in now for Wyshynski. More firepower on the boards as well as a good offensive player for Michigan State.
John Zuloff, the junior from Port Huron at 6'6". Down to 4:23. Blunt is right back up and ready to come in for Cincinnati. From the corner, Respert won't go for him. Spartans keep it alive, but it goes into the hands of the Bearcats. Buford.
Well, two state players hit the ball loose, and Cincinnati comes up with it.
Van Exel starts to drive, and Martin not ready for that pass. He surprised him with it. Turnover goes to Michigan State. We're at the University of Dayton Arena. Second round action here in the Midwest, and it's been a good battle right from the get-go. Although Cincinnati was up 17, it's now 65-56 with still lots of time left. 3:35 to go. Stevens trying to get it to Miller, but a hand on it from Gibson knocks it out of bounds.
Did the right thing looking down the sideline, just forced it too quick inside. That's when you look to go back to the Miller or back out. Then set up your offense. Michigan State has not run their half-court offense the last 4 or 5 minutes, and this is really playing into Cincinnati's defense.
Herb Jones back in, Buford out for Cincinnati. Respert, he hits.
That's
the
what
hot
they're
hand
looking
today.
for. You got it. He is hot. He's the only guy that can keep them going.
27 points for the freshman.
State has to play man-to-man now. The clock's against it. They can't play the zone.
Terrence Gibson to Blunt. Coming into the tournament, Respert had 444 points in his freshman year, second only to Magic Johnson as a freshman.
Well, what they're trying to do is to get into the bonus situation with the quick fouls, and this is something State's looking to do right now, is to force Cincinnati to the line, to force them to miss the shots. With 3 minutes to go, if you're not going to press, then go use your foul shot situations. This Michigan State team is not a good press team, so they're looking to use the foul line as a defensive weapon.
Zuloff got the foul. Eric Martin to the line.
It's a 1-on-1, not 2 shots.
17 fouls on Michigan State.
That's as good as a press. That's a turnover.
Miller got the rebound. Stevens. Miller can't control. Gibson a nice move. 3-on-1. Terrence Gibson.
May need a timeout, Michigan State right now, to settle down. With less than 3 minutes to go, you've got to make some type of strategy move, looking for the quick shots.
9-point margin. Respert has it knocked away. Gets it again. Miller underneath. Won't go for him. Good job by Terrence Gibson, and he is fouled.
They're calling a 2-shot intentional foul. That means Cincinnati will shoot 2 foul shots, plus get possession of the ball.
Intentional foul being called on Michigan State number 24, Sean Respert.
What you see now, the loose ball rebound.
That's his second personal foul.
Gibson comes up with it.
Team 8.
He grabs his shirt. Respert grabbed his shirt. Right call by Larry Limbo. 2-shot intentional foul. This really hurts Michigan State. They needed to convert on the missed foul shot on the last possession. Bob Huggins now knows that they've got control of the game because shoot the 2, call a set play from the sidelines, and that's what he's talking to his players about right now. He's talking to Buford about it. The 2 free foul shots only build the lead. Gibson misses the first. State right now, on their side of it, they've got to go for the quick 3-point shots. If not, get the rebound if you miss it. Call timeout, set up your defense.
Cincinnati 16-23 from the line. Gibson makes the second. 68-58. Bearcats by 10 with 2:30 left.
They still have one foul to give to put them in a 1-on-1, so it'll be interesting to see how quick Michigan State fouls if they don't get a steal or a trap where they force a steal.
Bearcat possession. Jones fouled by Stevens. Stevens got that knee out in front of him as he made his move.
We want to tell you Eddie Sutton and Oklahoma State are headed to the regionals. Eddie Sutton going back to Lexington, Kentucky, the site of the Southeast Regionals next week. Oklahoma State on a record shooting pace, Mike Francesa.
Just unbelievable, Jimmy. They can break the single game record held by North Carolina, and they might not get a chance to attempt another field goal as you see Sean Sutton leave the game. And Sean Sutton and Eddie Sutton, as you mentioned, heading back to Lexington. Was a traumatic time for him when he was the head coach of the Wildcats. Now, which will be a great story, Eddie Sutton and family and Sean heading back there for what will be a tremendous Southeast Regional.
So just a minute to go in that game. They're shooting 80% from the floor. And let's go back now to Dayton and Tim and Digger.
Tim Ryan and Digger Phelps here in Dayton. 2:08 to go. Cincinnati 68-61.
Michigan State could never get back in this game after being down 17 in the first half. They cut it to 7 by halftime by going to a zone defense. In the second half, they had a couple negative spurts where Cincinnati got what they wanted, the quick scores. Popowski has not had a good game in the front line. He's been in foul trouble all day, has taken him out of the game, has really helped State as far as not having the offense, but helped Cincinnati with the defense. Bob Huggins, on the other hand, knows he's blown big leads against Michigan State the last 2 times they have played. Foul shooting now very important in the last 2 minutes of this game. Cincinnati knows they can pull this off and get to the regional.
Jones with 11 points, going for 12, and he does. 70-61. Cincinnati would await the winner of Kansas and Texas El Paso if they can get through here. Montgomery cuts it back to 7. Van Exel is fouled from behind by Montgomery. 4th on him. And as you can see, the boards have belonged to Cincinnati, and with Popowski in early foul trouble, that really contributed to that stat.
There's still that little fear in Cincinnati about the losses to Michigan State the last 2 times where they had 18-point leads. So even though this is at 7, State was down 7 with about a minute plus to go in Cincinnati 2 years ago and came back to win it. So this game isn't over yet in the eyes of Bob Huggins as well as the Bearcats.
Rightfully so. Back up to 8, Van Exel. Makes it 9. So the Bearcats doing their job from the free throw line. 3-point try.
Has not scored all day. And he's cold coming off the bench. He has no confidence in his offense. Stenenga.
Foul in the lane. And the Cincinnati fans are on their feet. They sense victory here in the Sweet 16. 17 years since Cincinnati's been in the tournament. They lost in the first round that year. Now they've got a chance to go to the Sweet 16.
Well, if this puts it to 10 or 11, Michigan State will probably look to shoot the threes at this point. I still feel that if you pound it inside, go to the rim, draw the fouls, that stops the clock. But they're just going to trade fouls. The advantage goes to Cincinnati at this point.
Herb Jones with his second. Out of bounds off Blunt.
Cincinnati still in their press. They're going to still try to force a turnover. Watch the trap at half court.
Well, that's their game, and they've made it work again. 3-point try from Stevens off the mark. Jones, Buford, Blunt with him.
Great move. He's an excellent guard, Buford. He has really had an outstanding year for Cincinnati, and this should really ice it right now.
21 points for Anthony Buford, the senior transfer from Akron. Respert. Wyszynski. And it's Montgomery converting to bring it back to 10 with a minute to go.
What Judd's going to try to do is go for the trap or a quick foul, hoping he still has daylight with three-point shooting.
Well, here in Dayton, a 10-point margin with a minute to go for Cincinnati. We welcome those of you joining us, Tim Ryan and Digger Phelps, watching another impressive performance by the Bearcats of Cincinnati. The new great Midwest Conference.
Cincinnati today's done an outstanding job of just keeping their composure, keeping their poise in this game when it really counted. State made a run when they were down 17 in the first half, cut it to 7 by going to his own defense before halftime. Really played smart basketball in the second half to get this big lead.
Herb Jones is the line for Cincinnati, 2 throws.
Well, down in the southeast, Oklahoma State has advanced over Tulane, and Michigan and East Tennessee State will meet at 2:45, less than a half an hour from now. 14 points for Herb Jones at the line, and a disconsolate Michigan State Spartan team outrun, out-hustled, outplayed by Cincinnati. Eyebrows raised as also from their conference, Memphis State having a great tournament. That's swatted away by Corey Blunt. Terrence Gibson won't drop for him. There's Jones. He's been everywhere today. Anthony Buford's turned in an outstanding game at guard. Corey Blunt had 14 first half points. As Jeff Scott hobbled with an ankle, Blunt took up the slack up front. Wyszynski for the Spartans. Gets his own rebound. That won't go for him.
That's typical today for Michigan State. The loose balls, the turnovers, the missed layups.
Buford for Terrence Gibson. Cincinnati fans, many of them here, just an hour away from Dayton, and they're enjoying this.
Week 16.
The Bearcats are back. One of the great teams in NCAA history. It's been 17 years since they've been in the big show. And now they're into the Sweet 16. Coach Bob Huggins congratulates Judd Heathcote. And that hustling, aggressive, defensive style, trapping all over the floor, paid off again for Cincinnati. Some great shooting today by Anthony Buford. Good effort in the first half, as we said, by Corey Blunt. A strong bench performance again, and they were too much for the Spartans of Michigan State. Twice before, this year and last, they surrendered 18-point leads, only to lose by 2, and then won this year. And today they got their revenge when it counted in the NCAA tournament. They're on their way to the Sweet 16. Cincinnati 77, the Spartans 65, and they will meet the winner in Kansas City of the matchup coming between top-seeded Kansas and Texas El Paso. Sean Respert, the rookie, the freshman, had himself a tremendous day today in a losing cause. Anthony Buford had the hot hand and the leadership for the winning Bearcats of Cincinnati. And so for Digger Phelps, I'm Tim Ryan. We'll see you a little later today here from Dayton. Now let's return you to New York and Jim Nance.
All righty, Tim. So Oklahoma State with a tournament record 80% from the floor, advancing to the Sweet 16 for the second straight year. And now Cincinnati joins them as well into the regional round with a 77-65 victory. Let's set the lineup now. The next move for us, many will be seeing Kentucky against Iowa State. That'll be tipping at 2:30 Eastern time in Worcester. Some will see Michigan against East Tennessee State at 2:45 tip time, and the Kansas game will start in 1/2 hour back in Dayton. They're about to go in Tempe with Southwestern Louisiana and New Mexico State, and we'll continue on the road to the Final Four after this word from your local station. Out for Michigan and East Tennessee State with a 2:45 tip time. Kansas and UTEP about a half hour away. Oklahoma State has advanced after a record 80% from the floor, 87-71. Eddie Sutton is going to Lexington, and let's get the interview after the game. Here's our Curry Kirkpatrick.
Byron Houston, 27 points today. You seem to toy with this team.
Well, they ran a gamble-type defense, you know, which enabled me to get open a lot, just find a lot of holes, because it wasn't like just one person on me all the time. And so I was able to find the holes and score a little bit.
How's it feel about going back to the Sweet 16 a second year in a row?
Oh, it feels good. I mean, like beginning of the year, we set goals, and once again we were able to achieve our goals. We was able to go to the Sweet 16 again. That means all the hard work that we put in finally paid off.
Thanks a lot. Corey Williams, 27 points here. You're a Macon kid, not far away. What did it feel like?
Well, it felt good. You know, the first game I played, we struggled, but we just played a good ball game. Yeah, just had to take your hat off to Tulane because they have a great ball club and they're well coached.
Were you going back to Sweet 16? This is 2 years in a row. Is it going to be any different than last year?
Well, hopefully the thing that we want to do is go out and win. If we do the little thing, we think we can cause some teams some problems. We just want to play well. That's the main thing.
Thanks a lot. Eddie, I got to ask you, you're going back to Lexington, Kentucky, a place that you left not willingly maybe. What does it feel like? How have you talked about it at all with the family?
Yeah, I've talked to it. I've got a lot of friends back here, and I'll be very surprised if the majority of the people in Kentucky won't be for Oklahoma State. I have a lot of fond memories about the people in Kentucky. They always treated me well.
Patsy said she had gotten a lot of calls already about people wishing you luck and hoping you'd be back.
Well, we're happy to have the opportunity just to get to the Sweet 16 again. I think with our seniors, they'll be better prepared to play than maybe we were last year.
Thanks a lot, Eddie. Good luck.
All right, Curry. Again, 28 of 35 from the floor, 80%, a new all-time NCAA tournament record. 35 attempts. Billy used to shoot that many himself in one game.
And they couldn't get it inside. But the key was, I'll tell you something else before I get to that. You know, you wore better ties in those days, too. You know that?
I never wore ties. I didn't have ties. Now I've got big-time ties. They send them to me in the mail.
This is the worst one.
Jim won't let me show who I got this from.
This is the worst one I've ever. I mean, Soupy Sales had better ties
There's
than
a
that.
player
You know?
on Who's the player?
Who else?
Hey, Mike, I got news for you. What is this all about? Have you checked that one out?
A lot of guys left part of their pizza on
There's
that
nothing
tie
wrong with
last
that tie.
Best tie of the tournament so far. Marty Fletcher, the coach of Southwestern Louisiana. He's wearing it again today.
I think Virginia Stewart picked out that one for Norm. I like that better.
Oh, you like that one the best?
There's a real race on ties in this tournament.
Cincinnati's
in the win, Jim.
Hey, Cincinnati's into the Sweet 16. Let's give them their time here. For the first time since 1975. They won the national championship in 1962 when you played in that Final Four, Billy, back in 62.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing how people always use the name Oscar Robertson with those great runs by Cincinnati. It wasn't Oscar Robertson. It was a guy named Paul Hogue that was sensational in that 1962 championship against Ohio State.
By the way, I got your line for you against Ohio State in the Final Four 30 years ago tomorrow. Billy Packer, 17 points on 8 of 14 shooting. Pretty good.
Not bad.
Coming up, Kentucky against Iowa State. We'll send you out there. Later, we'll pull you out for the Michigan game. Others for Kansas as we continue on the road to the Final Four.
CBS Sports exclusive coverage of the second round of the NCAA Basketball Championship is sponsored by Pontiac and your local Pontiac dealer. We build excitement. John Deere, nothing runs like a deer. And by Hertz, we never forget who made us #1. We're Hertz. We're America's wheels.
Junior from West Helena, Arkansas.
Which two teams from this half of the East region will advance to the Sweet 16 in Philadelphia next week? That question will be answered shortly as the Cyclones of Iowa State get set to play the Wildcats of Kentucky. Both of these squads advance with hard-fought victories on Friday night. Second game today will be Massachusetts and Syracuse. And good afternoon, everyone. I'm James Brown. Well, these two teams bring with them interesting stories. Iowa State came into the game with the worst conference record at 5-9 of any of the teams in a 64-team field, yet they're still alive in the NCAA tournament. Kentucky, on the other hand, views its success this season as a celebration of loyalty, specifically the 4 seniors who stayed with the school when it looked like it was completely devastated by the problems there. They weathered the storm of a 2-year NCAA probation. My partner is Bill Raftery, and Bill, we know in talking with the players that they would like nothing better for Kentucky to get back to its old glory this year.
Well, Pitino, with his work habits, demands loyalty. They'll follow him up the hill, and I guess the guy that epitomizes this determination and the work habits is John Pelfrey, a guy that goes on the floor, gets down and dirty, not afraid to soil the uniform, much like Pitino desires.
At a young 64 years of age, Johnny Orr of Iowa State
has enjoyed success wherever he's been. He's one of the 5 oldest coaches in the college game today. But, Billy, because of that success, clearly he's passed the test of time.
Well, the one thread that runs through his tenure at UMass, Michigan, and Iowa State is the ability to handle the basketball and pass it, regardless of the side. Here's Julius Mikulik. And the nerve of this youngster to go behind the back in Worcester, the home of Bob Cousy. But whether at 6'11" he shoots the deep one or occasionally goes to the goal, this check borders on Larry Bird-like comparisons.
I think we have a high-octane broadcast coming your way today, folks, as we take a look at the starting lineups of these 2 ball clubs. Fred Hoiberg, Howard Eaton, Julius Mikulik, Ron Bayless, and Justice Thigpen for Iowa State. Jamal Mashburn, John Pelfrey, Jamel Martinez, Richie Farmer, and Sean Woods, the starting 5 for Kentucky. The officials for today's contest: Jody Sylvester out of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, Tom Harrington from Chico, California, and Bob Garibaldi from Stockton, California. Iowa State, as we mentioned, with the worst conference record coming in, but they have certainly played well, looked awfully impressive on Friday night, and playing against a Kentucky squad certainly no stranger to tournament action. The best in tournament history in terms of appearances, 34. As a matter of fact, Kentucky, the only SEC team remaining in the NCAA tournament. The tip controlled by Kentucky.
Iowa State, man-to-man.
What kind of defense is that, Billy?
Individual attention. A lot of motion, back screens by Kentucky. Trying to set up the 3 by going inside or dribbling in and kicking out.
Martinez with the pump fake and scores. Jamel Martinez gets the Wildcats on the board first. Ron Bayless coming off of an excellent defensive effort on Friday night. He has the ball, the shot, off the mark, rebounded by Mashburn. Richie Farmer for 3. A quick start by the Wildcats, out in front by a score of 5-0.
Richie Farmer, a couple of years ago, they didn't think he could play. Now he's got a street named after him in his hometown. And rightfully so, a hero. Nice mismatch for Iowa State. Farmer on Mikulik. Now they recover.
The pattern offense of Iowa State, a bit of a concern to Patino as you take a look at Mikulik at 6'11", a man at that size with an outside game.
And Johnny Orr delighted that he finally got that phone call through to Czechoslovakia. He had signed them. The NCAA said no, it was not during the period. He visited UCLA and then chose Iowa State because he liked the climate.
That's a little unusual. Martinez. Mashburn with the rebound and a strong move. And that's where Kentucky may have an advantage, Bill, on the inside.
They are strong. This is one of the great players in college basketball. That body, not by Fisher, maybe by Brown. Big, strong, and he can shoot the 3s.
And does a nice job of mashing folks on the inside.
The nickname, right? Monster Mash. And you can see the weakness, I think, with Iowa State, their inside physical play.
Pelfrey with the follow. Eaton the rebound. Bayless. Nice defensive job by Farmer, but a better offensive move by Bayless.
He guarded himself out of his shoe. You're right. He gave ground beautifully. Was in position to pick up that charge.
And the Wildcat teammates trying to wait for Farmer to get a sneaker on.
Well, he better do it quickly. They do everything else in a hurry.
Still plenty of time left on the shot clock. 24 seconds.
Nice job by Iowa State trapping. He doesn't have the lace fastened yet.
Woods inside. A little too quick a pass. Too much zip on it for Pelfrey. And Farmer with a little time, along with Bayless, tying his shoe.
Well, the unfortunate part of this is you could get hurt as he gets his legs and laces caught up.
Back to live action. Kentucky pressing. Ahead, Bayless. Spin move blocked by Pelfrey, but a foul whistled on John Pelfrey. That'll be foul number 1 on Pelfrey. And coming next, here on CBS, East Tennessee State taking on the Fab Five of Michigan. That will be a 2:45 tip-off, and of course, we'll get you there on time. And then at 2:50, it'll be UTEP taking on Kansas. East Tennessee State. Talk about a Cinderella squad. They've got a player named Calvin Talford. You know him, Billy. He's good.
Incredible basketball team. It's a great story. Les Robinson coached there a few years ago, went to North Carolina State. His assistant, Alan LaForce, took over, and look what they've done. Shocking Arizona and Lute Olson.
Cinderella only in name only because a lot of these squads can play, Billy.
Well, nobody's going to call him for games. Rodney Inglis, another pretty fair player down there. And a 2-2-1 after the free throw by Iowa State.
7-6 Kentucky lead. 17:20 left in the first half of play. Off of Iowa State, it stays Kentucky ball with 37 seconds left on the shot clock.
James, Iowa State does not want to press to turn it into a fast-paced game. We're going to try and back it off.
Mashburn, he's dangerous in there. Tipped slightly that time by Mickley.
Gamble.
Bayless brings it in. Farmer, alert play by Richie Farmer. Good hands. Boy, everything has to be about being alert for a Pitino team.
They're very demanding at practice. Everything done to the tee. A lot of back screen. They post up very well, JB. Martinez and also Mashburn.
Mashburn with the ability to come outside and play just as effectively. Nice pass to Farmer. Give the credit to Pelfrey.
Unselfish. Nice play again by Farmer. It's Richie's day with or without the footwear.
Now, normally, Bill, this kind of intensity early on is hard to sustain, but Kentucky goes 9 deep, so they can maintain it.
Well, high octave. They just like to push as much as they can, whether it's to complement the defense or run the break.
See the full court pressure by Kentucky trying to keep Iowa State out of its patterned offense.
Maybe that's the idea. They're too good in half court, Pitino feels.
Thigpen loses the handle, recovered by Mickley. And now Bayless gets a chance to set up that pattern offense that Pitino says looks very familiar.
Well, he said Jackie Lehman, his old coach at UMass, ran this. He had been an assistant for Johnny Orr. That's what's great about Mickley, JB. He can shoot it. We mentioned his ability to handle and pass, but not afraid to go strong to the basket. And generally, European players, they like that perimeter game. They'll bang you, but they don't like to go strong to the goal.
Mickley not in the act of shooting. The foul that time on Jamel Martinez. His first personal. Second team foul for Kentucky. 9-6 Wildcats lead. 16 minutes left in the first half. Deep shot by Thigpen for 2.
He's got to make them because with that high offense, they're not in good offensive rebounding position. Kentucky should be able to run off misses.
And a kick ball that time, an attempted pass by Mashburn, kicked by the quick reactions of Mickley. We'll be back after this. Good ball game in the early going here between Kentucky and Iowa State. And don't forget, coming next, East Tennessee State against Michigan. That's a 2:45 tip. UTEP against Kansas. That will be at 2:50. We will get you there on time. Wildcats, Farmer. Mickley with the rebound.
And Michigan, they're legit. Those great freshmen, the Fab Five we've been talking about all year. I'm impressed with their defense, JB. Everybody talks about their open floor ability. They get down and guard you.
Well, you hate to see that squad mature in tournament play because they are awesome.
A lot of people pray they leave early, huh?
Eaton for 3. And Pelfrey snatches the long rebound. Good hustle by Pelfrey. Martinez. No foul call. And Pelfrey with the rebound. Boy, Pelfrey is everywhere. 3 rebounds for John Pelfrey already.
Of course, they got that great sub coming in. Darren Feldhaus is all over as well. Martinez will make that shot next year. Will be a little bit stronger. A little too much there.
Lost his footing. Second turnover. Thigpen. Thigpen, who improved and honed his game playing his father.
An old Pittsburgh Piper, huh? He used to play him one-on-one, JB, and then the father stopped when he got pretty good. Now he just shoots against him. Intelligent. Nice
pass. Pelfrey inside to Woods. Pelfrey is on a mission. He said that clearly yesterday.
Hoiberg with the basketball. He's got to get in the game. Not like that, though.
Mashburn with the steal. Kentucky on top by 1. A 3 by Pelfrey.
He keeps shooting like that. Mission will be accomplished.
folks, we'll give you updates on this game coming up at halftime and throughout the afternoon. We're getting set, however, for East Tennessee State against Michigan. That game at the Omni in Atlanta. There's another game underway right now. That's in the West. And the Ragin' Cajuns taking on New Mexico State, a 12-13 game between those two high seeds, or low seeds, if you will. And it's the Ragin' Cajuns in front at this point by 15-14. All right, let's talk about the game coming up with Michigan and East Tennessee State. In fact, Mike, Billy and I like to see you talk about Michigan
Mike,
without using your hands this time.
See if you can do it.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
This may be the way you tie your hands underneath the table. Let's go, Mike. I can't.
Now, here's the thing with Michigan. They were able to overcome that game against Temple, which was a tough game in terms of matchups and pace of the game. And when they got behind, they came back. I think today they let their talent win out because they do have an edge there, and that game should have settled them into the tournament really well. And I use my hands again like that when I do.
That's okay, Mike. But I'm going to say something about East Tennessee State in this respect. They have been to the NCAA tournament. This will be the 4th straight year. They've had 2 close losses, and they got blown out by Georgia Tech, and now they've got that big win. I think this team's experienced enough to play against Michigan.
I think it's showtime for the Fab Five. Let's get you out to Atlanta. Back to Greg Gumbel and Quinn Buckner.
All right, Jim, thank you very much, and welcome to the Omni in Atlanta, everyone. East Tennessee State and the Michigan Wolverines. Game 2 here in Atlanta this afternoon. Oklahoma State has already moved on to Lexington. They will join Ohio State and North Carolina there. And welcome to the Omni. I'm Greg Gumbel. You know, one of the things that you have to take a look at is how people match up with the Michigan Wolverines. Here's Greg Dennis of Eastern Tennessee State.
Well, their size poses a problem for us without a doubt. They're similar to us in the fact that they have some very gifted athletes and guys that are, you know, able to do some things such as put the ball on the floor and, you know, go to the bucket and things. But right offhand, the problem is going to be their size.
Quinn Buckner alongside me, East Tennessee State. Greg Dennis looking at that, but Michigan has some problems matching up as well.
Well, they've got problems because they've got to be concerned about the three-point shooting. That's the thing that got East Tennessee State here. These guys are not afraid to shoot the shots. When they do that, what they force you to do is spread out the offense, and you'll see they are a very unselfish team. They'll pass the ball to the open man. You see right here, Calvin Talford can knock it down. They have 3 or 4 different players that can shoot it. They penetrate, they kick the basketball. You see right here, Nibley kicks it out to Rodney English. If you don't come out and guard them, they'll shoot the 3. And then when you come out to guard them, now they're so quick that they can get around you. They can find other people. That's what Michigan has got to contend with. How do they, what you call, help and recover?
East Tennessee State hit 13 of 25 from three-point land on Friday night. On the other side, though, you've got to contend with a couple of Michigan Wolverines, including the guy you like to call the man-child.
They've got 5 guys, first-year players on their team, and they're great players. But the player that you really have to watch out for is a guy at 6'9", about 240, and you worry about some of the things he can do inside, but he's got the ability to go outside, show some mobility, coming at you. Look at him, a little Irvin Magic Johnson with the look away and the finish by the other guy you've got to be concerned about, and that's Jalen Rose.
Jalen Rose, number 5, Chris Webber, number 4, and they compose 2/5 of the starting lineup. The whole lineup, yeah, technically they're freshmen, but they like to think that with 29 games under their belt now, you're really looking at a bunch of sophomores. Take a look at the matchup problems that both sides were talking about. Rodney English and Marty Story at forward, Greg Dennis in the middle, Calvin Talford and Jason Niblett at guard. For Michigan, Chris Webber, Ray Jackson, Jawan Howard, Jimmy King, and Jalen Rose, the starting lineup for the Wolverines. Our officials for game 2 this afternoon, Frank Scagliotta from Penargil, Pennsylvania, Tom O'Neill from Tinley Park, Illinois, and Bob Barnett from Baltimore. There is Steve Fisher, 64 and 31 in his 3rd year in Ann Arbor as head coach.
And Greg, what he's been able to do is get his freshmen to really grow. And Alan LaForce is a guy who has been in basketball some 30 years or so, was looking for the opportunity to get things going, got the job when Les Robinson went to North Carolina State, and Alan LaForce has made this team not only a defensive team, but they are confident that they can shoot the outside jump shot and create their own tempo. They come out from the top man to man.
Opening tap to Michigan. Rose inside. Chris Webber, turnaround, doesn't go. Big rebound by Jackson. And he'll go to the line to shoot 2.
Well, Jackson is a guy that can really help them on the glass. Very good jumper, and he's a guy that I know wants to show everybody that he belongs, a part of that group. He is also a talented freshman.
Foul is on Rodney English. Ray Jackson, a 6'6" freshman from Austin, Texas, had 6 points and grabbed 6 rebounds in Michigan's win on Friday over number 11 seed Temple.
I think you'll see as Ray Jackson gets more mature, you'll see a lot more of what you just saw there. And made tonight, this afternoon, I should say, because he knows that he's got to get his points off of garbage, if you will, getting offensive rebounds, getting some steals, because they have enough people that they can go to in the floor of the offense.
Now, East Tennessee State, important for them to get off the mark offensively. And there's a takeaway and a foul by Calvin Talford.
Got his head up before he got the pass, and it popped in the air, and then he stopped Jalen Rose. If he doesn't stop Jalen Rose, that's a fast break. So you can't afford to get Talford in foul trouble because he's probably the best all-around player in athlete.
2 quick fouls on the Buccaneers of East Tennessee State. The lob doesn't work. And back out front, Webber chases it down.
Talking to Coach Steve Fisher, one of the things Michigan wants to try to do is make sure that they continue what's happened to them the last 6 or 7 games, or the last 3 or 4 games, to get that lead early. That's a way they don't have to struggle to get some offense. That's a mismatch that Michigan will exploit. Juwan Howard, very good down low. There's no way he can be guarded by Marty Story. The height is just too much in the favor of the Wolverines.
Marty Story 6'3", Juwan Howard 6'9". Talford. That went off the mark. Jackson with his first rebound of the day.
Michigan's real concern needs to be one of, will they stay patient? See, they can get that all day long. Now, the three-point shot is very important for East Tennessee because that is a chance that if I give up an easy hoop on the other end, I put pressure on you if I score a three-pointer. I don't put as much pressure on you to score two-pointers.
Greg Dennis at 6'11" will also shoot the 3 for East Tennessee State. Story open.
Now, that'll become a problem because either Juwan Howard's going to have a problem on one end or Chris Webber will. But you got to come back and defend.
The pass inside, almost taken away from Michigan. It belongs to the Wolverines.
Juwan Howard is one of the guys who said who started to take his time. You see right here, Story makes a mistake in going for the steal instead of staying behind Juwan Howard, even though he's taller by about 4 or 5 inches. You've got to make people shoot over you. Don't gamble, because if you miss it, it just makes it an easy basket.
Howard grabbed outside by Marty Story. And that's the first foul on Story.
Greg, it's very apparent that Michigan saw the Arizona game. The one thing that I thought Arizona did a poor job of was in their execution in terms of getting the ball on the strong side to either Mills or somebody down low. Then as you see Juwan Howard drill a jump shot, swinging it back to the other side because the help goes to the strong side, and then the guy can post up very easily without anybody coming out on the weak side.
Rodney English drives and tries to flip it back and doesn't quite get there. Webber trying to turn on his man, the short pop, gets the bounce.
There's just no way. Dennis has got to make a decision. He's got to come out and guard. He can't be trying to get back to his man. You've got to make Chris Webber pass the ball from there.
This is Dennis faking Howard and blocked by Webber.
I thought that was goaltending because he was standing under the basket when he came out to get it.
Official said no, let him play. Webber trying to go around Dennis, off the glass, 2 more.
Well, they've got off to the kind of start they have. At this point, you're trying to wait here to see can you get through a timeout, but I'm looking